Okay. So we're going to go through two very simple techniques. They're stances that are highly related. And they're just the two most basic Wu Qi stances that I train. There are other versions depending on how you hold your hands, how high you hold your arms. And I don't really know my Chinese differences in the language. But it's worth saying there are others. But these are the two that I have found the most valuable, with the third place being a horse stance version. Some people might find that one more useful than me, but my crippled leg can only do so much of that stuff. So get yourself ready. We're going to just do about a 10-minute meditation. Probably not quite that, but I don't have a way of timing myself right in this moment. But we're just going to pass between these two stances, and I want you to focus in on those four principles that I brought up last week. How do they apply to what you are doing? And then after we do a little meditation, we're going to come back around and talk about it a little bit more, and we'll do another short version of the thing so you can kind of feel what you thought it meant and then hear some of the thoughts that I think it meant. Use that contrast to develop yourself. So the two most basic stances here we have are just this basic one and the one where we sink our hips and raise the ball. And those are them. And we're going to pass between them. You're going to find if you're a beginner or if you've got a gnarly back injury that sometimes a little wiggity, out. Did I just almost say wiggity whack? I think I did. But if your back is out, it can actually bring up a lot of tension when you do this guy. So passing between these two, if too much tension builds, is a way of training Wu Qi. Most people would recommend that you choose one of these stances and stick with it. I, with my back injury, just have found this to be more valuable, is passing between these two. So what are our four intentions, our four statements? Movement and alignment from center. Deep relaxation. Can you see my hands? I think you can. 3 is down weightedness, that connection to the bottom of the ground and to sort of the underside of everything, every cell in your body. And 4th is extension. So explore those with me here. And then we will come back around and talk about it a little bit and explore. Get yourself ready. Feet shoulder width apart, ideally symmetrical. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. So, gather yourself in your center. And relax yourself down into your feet. Feel free to pass between either of these stances whenever you need it, not necessarily when I do it. So I could feel my back needed to crack. So I stood up and it cracked. So just a thought on passing between them when you need it. And again, you saw the shame shift with me just there. Just a little twist and then a stand up. I actually find this really helpful for aligning my spine, and I probably shouldn't do the twist, but it's just sort of instinct that's popping out of me there. But for the sake of the average person, just when you need to rise up, when you need to rest down. And go ahead and rest back down. Your arms, your center will rise up subtly, but it shouldn't really feel like you're pushing. It should just relax upward. Go ahead and blink your eyes open. Let's talk about it. Out of curiosity, I want to know how many minutes that was. Oh, okay. It was almost 10 right on the nose. Okay. So, how do we apply those 4 things? First, let's just talk a little bit about external posture. External posture will begin to clean itself up if you obey these internal rules, principles. But you can have a brokenness that causes things to not align even though you're doing those things. So let's talk about one of those in me. So if you look carefully at my legs a moment, you'll see that I used to study Wing Chun, and it draws your legs into a specific pattern, and then you combine that with the fact that I've got my long leg over here, and you can see that this guy tracks inward, and it causes this arch to want to fall to the ground. Now, learning the flexibility to set your arch on the ground and build it up is something that one can do, but you don't want imbalance, and that side of my arches are definitely subtly flattened. So one of the points I brought up briefly last time we were talking about this was our 3 points on the bottom of our foot. Now, those points are at the heel, here at the base of the big toe, and here at the base of the little toe. And you want to have a nice, relatively even pressure between them in most families of Tai Chi. Some Tai Chi families say put all that weight in the heels, or most of it. When I did that technique, it jacked my back up. I had resisted it for many years, and then when I finally did it, I think I was too old. I think some of these really extreme tendon changing things are really, the Wing Chun, you can see what it did to my knees permanently. And it's the same, I did Wing Chun for 5 years though, whereas I only explored that heel weighted thing for maybe 2, and it still jacked me up. It's more like 2.5. It still really jacked me up. And I really believe that some of these tendon changing things are things, if you don't start young enough, they will jack you up. They have value for people who start young enough when your bones aren't yet fully set. But when you get to a certain age, they can jack you up. Anyway, that's my little spiel on the heel weighted thing, and also that Wing Chun stuff that gets going where you clench the ground and have your knees pointing forward with your toes pointing inward. It's like that alignment is not great. And it has caused me trouble over the years. And I started that many, many years ago. But again, I think it was exacerbated by my long leg, short leg thing. Whereas the Tai Chi thing, I think, was actually just the basic problem was I was too old to be doing that. I used to read quite frequently in the martial arts books and magazines that, oh, once you're a certain age, you shouldn't do this art even, sometimes entire arts. Tong Shi Gong, excuse me, as I probably have terrible Chinese pronunciation, but that's a classic example of such an art. So anyway, just a brief thought on those foot points. Again, you want to see if you can get all 3 of these points down. And then I would add a 4th point, which is that kidney 1 point here. It's that hole right behind the ball of your foot to your perineum. I really think that straight down perineum point wants to connect to those kidney 1 points. And I've had really great experience doing that. So the next thing about alignment is that you can have your feet shoulder width and parallel, or if that's uncomfortable for you for some reason and you have to turn out one or both of them, just make sure you're symmetrical and gently, gradually see if you can gradually just work that in year by year. You might not be able to get to there. That's fine. It's not about externals, it's about internals. So developing symmetry from the ground up is how Tai Chi as a posture system works. So you got to get that posture started right in your feet. So the next point about alignment is, because that's most of it. One more thought. So in recent years, I've also run into more and more people talking about pointing this second digit forward, your phalange number 2 there. And that works pretty well for me because I used to study Wing Chun. Um, you would universally do this in Bakwa when you held this stance, from what I can tell. But Tai Chi, some schools do it, some don't. I find it nice because it actually supports my arches while I'm doing Wu Chi. But I definitely would not start doing circling with these internally rotated at all. You want parallel or external for this kind of stuff, or else it's going to cause some troubles in your knees. So posture of the feet, knees, and hips. Now, if you're young enough and healthy enough, all of this stuff will come together just by you obeying the principles. But again, the more broken you are, the more you kind of have to redevelop and sometimes put energy in. So what do I mean by put energy in? Well, I mean extend my center into it. So as I extend in both directions here for my, I extend my spine up and down. Got a little bit of a natural rounded here, right? And when I sink, that should flatten, and this creates a taller spine. And I highly recommend looking at yourself sideways in the mirrors, getting as naked as you feel comfortable and really observing what it looks like versus what you're doing. Quick note on here, there's a little bit of a perspective shift because I'm using the side that I can see myself and the 3 cameras on the other side, so I could get better perspective, but I wouldn't have any clue what I was doing. I really should just probably give up on the crutch of my eyes at some point, but for now, I still want to be able to see myself. So point being, come back around. From center, I extend, and that lengthens my spine. And you can see that I sink down, and my knees end up. That's probably a pretty standard place for me to hang out in Wu Chi, right about there. Yeah, that's about where I hang out. There's some schools that drop a lot lower. I'm not sure that there's a whole ton of value in that other than developing a lot more strength and flexibility, but which has value. But there's other ways of doing strength and flexibility. I don't want to spend all my days doing these things. Stance training specifically. I mean, just stance training is, I appreciate it, but too much is rough on me, on my the way I think and move and stuff. Okay, so center, extension, keep relaxed, and then the down weightedness. Really keep track of the bottom of your feet too. You should feel whenever this center does something. You should feel the way that moves on the bottom of your feet, no matter what you do. Even just coming up and down like this, you should feel that. So one more thought is, if you've got tension up here, let it go, right? So your shoulders riding, find yourself doing something like this, let it go. We can hold tension in all sorts of fascinating ways. The more you let go, the more your actual skeletal structure will reveal itself. And if you have a really healthy posture, you will find that you don't really need to do many adjustments internally. You just have to follow these principles. The more broken your posture is, the more you're going to have to subtly work with things. So if I have a broken posture on the bottom of my feet, as I was talking about, I have to extend and feel all 3 of, from here, an extension down to all 3 of those points. All 4 really in my mind, but in most schools they'll focus on those 3 that I mentioned. And then I can feel everything evening out by gently putting myself in a position that's vaguely out of alignment with what I am, but is more aligned with what I should be. By gently doing that, I gradually affect my posture into a healthier and healthier posture. And that's a huge piece of what stance training can do for you, is that it really lets you focus in on the details because you're sitting there in an isometric hold. It's not exactly isometric. You're moving a little bit internally and things are stretching and stuff, but it's basically isometrics. Okay, so um, one last thought, I think. One last thought is that in order to move my arm from my center, what I do is I catch this downward pulse. Boom. There's an equal and opposite reaction, right? And my shoulder, if I just gently sort of try and leave my shoulder in place as my hip drops, of course this bone is going to drop. But the musculature doesn't have to fire as hard because I'm grabbing some of this energy to lift my arm. And so this is what I mean by soft style comes from movement of center first. So as I drop, I catch that right here, right? I don't just lift my arm, feel that wobble back and forth, and then drop my legs. I don't drop my legs and lift my arm. None of these have anything to do with moving from center exactly. If we're trying to make that shape, to make that shape from center, I extend the center's energy here, and it almost feels like there's like a bubble coming up underneath my armpit when I do it really well. Like somebody's got a ball here and they're just squeezing some air in, and I go, and it's like I've got this thing that's kind of opening me up. Of course, there isn't that thing there. What there is this drop, and that drop can be caught. There's a little bit more to it than that as well, because I also have to drop my chest. So keep doing the same perspective for you. So if I say I have really rigid legs and I can't move, maybe I'm sitting. How do I lift my arm from my center then? Well, if you really feel it, you'll feel this drop in your chest. Your chest, your ribs come together on the side of your spine in a way that causes your ribs to flare out and drop from the front. They're all hanging on this front side. So if you're lifting your chest up, you're pushing back against gravity and you're being an up-weighted person and you're being not relaxed, right? These are the exact opposite of relaxed, up-weighted, and centered, which is why that form of posture actually causes as much pain as anything else that I've ever experienced. It's a terrible version of posture in my personal experience. But letting the natural rhythm of my chest go downward as I let this come up leads to a very similar sensation underneath. And again, that's me extending from my center to here and going, extending out this way, as it were. Right? So again, that ball underneath. And so if you learn to tap in, if you try sitting down for a moment actually and just feel that, you can feel how if I drop my chest a little, it makes it less effort to raise here versus just raising it, which feels a little disjointed through my body. There's like this separation going on instead of unity. What I want is unity, everything moving as one. So that kind of a thing. Okay, so I think that I've said everything that needs to be said. With those thoughts in place, fix your posture. We're just going to do another half set or so. Choose your foot posture well. Last one I did was parallel. Well, we're doing Tai Chi right now. I'll stick to it. But again, in theory, in Bakwa, I might turn those guys in just a little bit. And again, if you're going to do that and you start doing the other Tai Chi exercises where you do the rotating stuff, I wouldn't. I can do the Bakwas. There's sort of pretty similar Bakwa exercises. I can do those from this posture and it's no problem. But the Tai Chi, I know. And also one other person I was teaching had the same problem where they were like, oh, this is messing with my knees a little. No sense doing that, right? We're trying to heal ourselves, not break ourselves. So listen to your body, pay attention, and try and practice these 4 principles. From here, nice and relaxed, get your feet centered, get your mind centered, and sink. I forgot to mention, you want to make sure your fingers are nice and symmetrical and that you're really making a ball shape in here. It's really easy to be too close to your chest and have an oval, too far out, have a different version of an oval. Your elbows dropping like this, it's more like you've got a ball from the underside. Generally, I forgot to mention one key point as well. Tongue right against the back of your teeth, teeth lightly, gently together. So right there, I didn't like my motion, and I'm going to pass between two for a moment. Get my motion a little bit better. Okay, go ahead and blink your eyes open. Um, yeah, I guess two final thoughts. One is that you want to work your Wu Qi up to an hour at some point. I don't do endless stance training, but it is a really powerful thing to develop a certain amount a certain amount of this kind of stuff. And there are a great many Tai Chi people who learn to do this Wu Chi for a solid hour. And the exercise I just showed you, passing between those two, probably the quickest way to get in there. An hour straight with your knees just bent first day, you're going to walk away with just sore quads. That is going to be a quad burner. And while you're also getting used to it, the more with the knees less bent and the arms down, that version, you might be surprised how much your calves hurt after an hour. Of either of those, they'll kind of tear you up when you're first learning them. So, a word of caution: be mindful, and therefore also be aware that look, you can pass between these two exercises, and you'll get a better overall workout if that's what your interest is. Um, but also on the way to getting to a full hour, you might find that there's a lot of stuff that gets going in there, and it's really hard to just sit for an hour like this, especially if you haven't learned to let that chest down yet. You're going to have a lot of extra pressure up here holding things up. You actually kind of want to find this spot where your chest dropping down kind of ends up feeling like your bones are holding it up. There is some musculature, and to deny that is a blatant lie. This anterior deltoid just has to be firing in order for the shoulder flexion to be occurring. But you can really reduce that pressure by resting that chest, sinking. And then the one other thought I have is a little bit of an aside. It has to do with all my videos, which is a couple weeks ago, I decided I should just start. I rewatch these videos. I see a little comment that's like, oh, I should clean that up a little. I'm actually just typing them out in the description section rather than having a whole thing here with you. So just minor corrections. Just check the comment sections for them. Yeah, and I think that's it. Really and truly start practicing those 4 principles with every single motion you make, and you will gradually develop a healthier alignment. You will develop a healthier way of moving, and everything will just take less effort. So, or at least that's this cripple's assessment. All right. Thank you.